have Liya here with me today,
AKA the best McKnight.
the youngest McKnight of Magnolia. So, Liya, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and you can say whatever's on your heart.
Okay. Today we're going to talk about mental health, and I'm going to share specifically how it became more noticeable and just
Okay.
how it's affected me over the years.
Okay. So, do you mind if I ask questions or do you want to lead or is there something you want to say first?
You can start with questions if you want.
Would you like to share how or when it started? What specifically about your mental health are we speaking about?
It's kind of hard to explain. With anxiety, that mainly started in sixth grade in quarantine.
What mental health symptoms do you have?
With the anxiety, I have the obvious fidgeting. I also have the overthinking and just being anxious at random times over nothing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then with depression, I also have the little to no motivation, less energy, just being tired all the time, losing interest in certain things.
So, when would you say these symptoms started? When did you first recognize them?
So with the depression, that started in like the fifth grade, January.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what I felt, and I didn't know how to explain it or how to talk about it to you or Dad, because I was confused as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually talked to the twins about it, and then they were the first people I ever shared any kind of mental health like things with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I just didn't want to be here anymore, and I didn't know what caused it or why I didn't want to be here, because nothing happened. This was before COVID, so I was doing completely fine, so nothing really caused it. And then later in the year, when COVID hit, my anxiety started to become more noticeable.
Yes.
And it was like when everything reopened and we started going out, I got nervous seeing some people, I feel. Like I didn't like ordering food because I felt nervous talking.
I remember. And you
I
had always liked doing that. Like, you guys have always ordered your own meals since
Forever.
forever.
Yeah. Also, it was like I didn't want to talk as much, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole personality changed.
Was it helpful having someone other than your immediate family, the people that you live with, around to talk to?
I think it was. It made it easier. It's like I was able to trust them enough to talk about it, to try and figure out how I felt.
I am so thankful that you have them to be able to share things like that with, because I think it exacerbates when you don't have anyone to share these things with and you have to hold it in.
It was like I was confused and kind of scared because I didn't know how I felt. So it was just, I don't know, like,
Can you share with us what feelings you had or how the anxiety and depression presented?
so with the fifth grade and when it like started with the depression, it was just, I just didn't want to be here and I couldn't explain why, what caused it, what kept it going.
Right.
So that was difficult because it was like, you know, didn't understand why
So you
I
felt
felt the
these
way I did.
feelings, but you couldn't pinpoint why you were feeling because nothing specifically happened or nothing triggered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the anxiety that was just COVID, quarantining, and not seeing anyone except for you guys. And when I FaceTimed the twins,
Right. In fifth grade, were you feeling hopeless? Were you feeling
it was kind of a combination of hopeless and worthless.
mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't think it would get better because I didn't know what it was. And I didn't think it would matter if I did it or anything.
What made you come to us and tell us? Because to be honest, we noticed your personality change, but we thought it was you just being moody. We thought it was puberty. I didn't think you were suffering from any mental health issues. I didn't think it was anxiety. I didn't think it was depression. I literally just chalked it up to you're getting older and you're starting to develop into your own person.
What caused me to start talking to you guys was because I was scared. And I didn't want to deal with that alone. I was mainly just scared and didn't know what I felt really.
Okay. So once you talked to us about it, did that give you an immediate sense of relief?
It wasn't immediate, but I did start feeling better knowing that I'm not like I wasn't the only person who felt that way, and that it's I don't want to say like necessarily say it's normal, but it kind of is.
It really is. In our family, we do have a history of mental health. And I think in our community, there's this stigma around talking about mental health. But there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to hide because I feel like it should be a general conversation just like everything else.
Yeah.
And I am thankful that you did come to us and that you did talk to us. I do realize it was something that you needed to be ready for. It's not something that we could have pulled out of you.
Yeah.
And for that, I am very thankful. Was there a defining moment that made you say, okay, I have to go talk to mom and dad and tell them exactly what's going on?
I think it was when I talked to the twins because they told me that I could or should go to you guys because you know more and could help if needed.
True.
So that helped, definitely.
Do you think, and I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this question, but do you think COVID helped or hindered your
Hindered a
mental
whole
health?
lot.
It did. That's when I did notice you started to really be withdrawn more. The longer we were quarantined, the more you went into your shell.
Yeah, I feel like with quarantine, I was in my room or the bonus room only. Wasn't sleeping as much.
That's definitely when the insomnia started.
I don't know if I want to call it insomnia, I feel, because it's like, yeah, I struggle with it, but it's not like diagnosed.
Okay, Liya, when you sleep a couple hours a night, that is insomnia.
Alright,
Did you lose interest in the things that you like to do?
definitely. But I started noticing that, like, more recently than the 6th grade, the COVID and everything. I was just constantly tired and I wanted to just come home and lay down. It's not like I didn't like the barn, I just didn't feel up for it, ever.
I remember that probably was one of the major red flags because you would want to go to the barn 5 days a week and stay all day, all night, and then you just didn't really want to go. Even during COVID, that was the one place you could go. You would go, but not a lot.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, well, maybe she's just tired. Maybe she just doesn't want to go. It wasn't you.
it wasn't.
It wasn't. We got you a therapist. Sometimes therapists aren't the ones
I
for
didn't
you.
like that lady.
And I'm not going to say I didn't like her. She just didn't understand your needs. I realized that having a therapy session over Zoom was not the best for you, but at the time, that's all we could do because a lot of places were still closed. People didn't want to come out. COVID was still new. We were in the height of the pandemic, and that was the only option we had.
Yeah.
Not that particular therapist, but to have it, online. After your sessions with her, we were like, okay, let's find another therapist. We were traveling a lot. We were doing a lot of things. We felt like when you were busy, you didn't really think about, not saying you didn't think about your mental health, but it wasn't as pronounced.
Being busy definitely helps me because it leaves me less time to think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when I have a lot of time to think, that's like when it gets worse. So it's like I have to do something all the time.
Okay. The therapist that you have now is a lot better
Definitely.
for you. You don't dread the sessions as much, or I don't think you do dread the sessions.
Sometimes it's an inconvenience. Like,
True.
I'd rather just lay down and not talk about my feelings. And it's like, I get it helps, but I'm normally just exhausted when therapy takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go ahead and get it over with.
How, and I don't know if this is something that you guys talk about at school, online. Do you know if there are any other kids in your grade in your school that suffer from mental health issues or who are seeking therapy?
I'm not super sure about therapy, but I know some of my good friends used to. And with mental health, there's definitely a lot of people in my grade who suffer from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of really upsetting to think about how much mental health has affected like 14-year-olds and even younger. Just overall being a teenager and growing up, I guess. It's just that it gives a lot of people more mental health issues because they're stressed about the future, stressed about grades, they're just scared for growing up. They're trying to fit in, they're struggling with fake friends, and it's just like a lot that happens that can affect someone's mental health.
Do you think social media plays a part in it?
I do.
How so?
I believe it has its pros and cons. Like,
What are some pros?
I feel seeing people talk about how they feel can make it easier to talk about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you can realize that it's normal and that you're not alienated or isolated. And it can help you realize that you need help.
Okay.
And then through social media, you can get help faster in some situations.
How is that?
Like, if you know nothing and you just know that you need a therapist, but you don't know how to look for it,
Mm-hmm.
you can listen to someone online
Okay.
share
That's
how
a
to
good,
find one.
That's a good idea. That is a really good idea. And what, I guess, would be some of the cons for you feel for social media? And I know we did Liya and I, we did a podcast about it, but you specifically, in terms of mental health.
I think it can affect someone's confidence and self-esteem.
How so?
Seeing a bunch of people on the internet that go viral just for being attractive,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start to compare yourself to them,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just you compare yourself to their height, economic status, just beauty, body, and so much. One other issue with that is people who speak out about body positivity, most of the time it's only girls talking about girls' insecurities with their physical appearance, and it's never discussed how guys may feel.
Okay.
I know many guys and their mentality is just, boys don't cry, I'll get over it.
The tough guy
Yeah.
persona.
And that just also, makes me feel bad, and that's not healthy. So that's another con. So.
You raised some good points. How, if I were a 14-year-old getting ready to be a high school freshman, Are there things that you would recommend me doing to protect my mental health?
Just focus on yourself and realize how stupid most of the people this age are. And it's like, this kind of sounds mean, but I stopped valuing a good amount of people's opinions around my age. Whether it's positive or negative, it's just like, oh, well.
Do you know? Do you know there are adults that still cannot do that?
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, Leah, I probably was well into my 20s. No, I'm lying. I probably was in my 30s.
Yeah.
For sure, by 40, I really started to not care what people thought or what people said. But one thing I can say about you, you've always been a very strong person. You wear what you want to wear. Your style is your style. I did a podcast. I think it was the first one. And we were talking about you. And Naya mentioned how in awe of you she is because you've always had a very strong sense of self.
Yeah.
That takes a lot. I remember we had just moved here. And you know what I'm about to say, right?
I do.
We had you in competition cheer. We were gone a couple nights a week. That summer before, you went to horse camp and you were so excited and you had met Lori and all that stuff. And
I
then
love Miss Lori.
I know you do. And so you literally walked out of cheer practice and I was waiting for you and I went to give you a big hug and you stomped your foot and said, I don't want to cheer, I want to ride a horse. And I looked at you and I was like, oh dear God, get in the car. And I tried to like rush you in the car because everybody was like looking at us. Like, she don't want to be here? Does she know how lucky she is to be here? And I was just like, oh. And I remember I came home and I told Dad and then Naya was around and Naya was like, she said what she said. And you did not, like we pulled you immediately out. I still have the uniform.
I tried it on the other
That
couple weeks
$500 uniform. I'm like, oh my goodness. Never made it to a real competition. And I'm like, oh my God. But you knew from the beginning that wasn't you. And you were like, I'm not going to pretend. This is what I want to do. And we put you at the barn and you haven't looked back.
I remember when we started at the barn, it was just camps before. Mm-hmm. Because it's definitely not a cheap sport, so you wanted to make sure I wanted to do it, and then
But neither is competition cheer.
True, but one's a little more expensive.
Yes and no. Honestly, I really can't say that if you competitive cheer, you can't have horses and you can't, because competitive cheer is expensive. It is so expensive that, I don't even want to get into how expensive it is, but it's expensive. But as I was saying, you just have always had this strong sense of self. And for you to say that you stopped valuing what people say and think about you at 14 only speaks to that. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, it's just like everyone has something to say, me included. I always share my opinion, whether it's wanted or not.
But I feel like that's with us, not necessarily maybe with your best friends, yes. But, so let me ask you this. If there's someone, a kid maybe around your age, that's struggling with their mental health, what advice would you give them? Or what would you say to them?
That they should try to get help early on, because it being untreated when you're an adult can just lead to so many more issues. Mm-hmm. And mental health that's treated incorrectly or not treated at all can destroy a person from the inside out. So it's best to go ahead and try and dial it in and find things that can help you with it.
So what are some of the things that you found other than therapy and the barn that help you?
Music help, because whenever there's a slight emotional disturbance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I always go in my room, play music through the Alexa or my headphones.
True. What would you say to a parent who suspects that maybe their child is having mental health symptoms, or they see that their child's personality has changed a little bit? What would you say to that parent?
They should try to help their kid as soon as they notice it so that it doesn't get worse.
How do you start that conversation? If you've never had that conversation with your child about mental health symptoms, or mental health illnesses, how should a parent approach their child?
I think they should take a minute, like a quiet time, just with the two of them, and ask how they feel. And if you've noticed they've lost interest in certain things, ask why you think they've lost interest.
Mm-hmm.
Ask how, if they're tired, and just try and find some symptoms of what you suspect your child to have, and ask questions based off of that. Like, do you feel less motivated oftentimes? Are you tired a lot? Is it harder for you to focus, trouble sleeping, decreased appetite? Stuff like that. And if you notice that they say yes to a lot, and I hope you can tell to a degree when your child's lying or not. And if you think your kid lied, you should try talking to them again and make sure they're ready
True, that's a good
before,
idea.
because if they're lying, that probably just means they're not ready to talk about it.
Do you think maybe writing a letter, like if they don't want to talk about it face to face, are there other forms of communication? Maybe a letter, maybe a text, maybe writing a letter and leaving it on the island on the way to work in hopes that they turn it over and respond and leave it? Because I feel like some kids and some adults don't want to have a face to face conversation about issues, and especially mental health, because in a lot of ways it's still taboo for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Do you think that's helpful?
I definitely think it is.
True. Are there certain things parents should definitely not do if they suspect their child is having mental health symptoms or mental health issues?
They shouldn't pressure the kid into a conversation or try and pressure them into the doctors. No guilt tripping and no yelling about it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if their child does end up having issues, they need to be more patient. Like a lot more patient, because for me personally, and I know other people feel this way too, it's just more difficult to do basic tasks, especially ones that aren't things that you really enjoy as is.
Okay.
And it's
Like cleaning your room?
yeah, it's just sometimes I genuinely just cannot bring myself to do it. Even if there's something I really want to do, but I have to clean up before,
Okay.
I just can't bring myself to clean.
Okay. And I will admit that I am not always the most forgiving when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's do it or don't go.
Yeah.
That's always been my mentality. Most recently, I have been a little more lenient or understanding. But I mean, that's through my eyes. I don't know through your eyes.
You've gotten better.
It is not something that's easily navigated, but I am trying. Dad's trying. You know, we do want to see things your way.
Yeah, and I can tell. And it's one also thing I'll say, and it's not like y'all are genuinely doing anything wrong, and I understand it from y'all's perspective. And it's sometimes if I didn't do something I was asked to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like if I just end up laying in bed, it's because I'm just tired and I'm ready to just go to bed, but I can't because of the time. I don't want to do anything. And it's like, I feel like it's difficult for you two to understand just because you grew up seeing mental health not taken care of properly. It's just sometimes when you guys don't understand, and that can occasionally stress me out. And it's not anything that you guys do intentionally. You just won't always understand it immediately.
True.
And I get that. I know you guys are trying, and when you guys don't understand and I'm frustrated, I don't want to have a conversation because that would be through me in tears. And you guys don't understand the tears either. So I feel that could just be a whole one-sided mess. So it's just sometimes I have to be more patient about y'all's understanding.
And that is what I don't want you to have to carry that burden. As the parent, we should. I know that's something we need to work on. Because again, I don't want you to carry the burden. That's something that I want to carry. And it's also my biggest, I'm not going to say regret, but you know how mental health is genetic.
Yeah.
It's hereditary. I really wish that, and this is not to say that it wouldn't have happened to you, but I wish I suffer from mental illness so that you wouldn't get it and that you wouldn't have to carry it.
Yeah.
And the past 2 weeks has been really hard for me. I don't know if you want to share, but it's been really, really, really difficult. Like I've had a hard time with it, and then I felt bad because I felt bad. Like I felt guilty for feeling guilty
Yeah. And
because it's not about me, it's about you.
I'm open to sharing. It was just a rough time for me. Missed like 3 days of school. And one also thing is it's like Thursday at the doctor's and we were talking. When I saw you get upset, that made me feel upset too.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not like anything that you can control, and it's better that you were showing that you were upset instead of just hiding it.
Yeah.
And it's just like mental health is it's a mess, and I feel sometimes it's like I don't always want to talk about it because I feel that starts to burden you guys. And I get reassuring that it doesn't. Like, Dad will be like, no, it doesn't. It's okay. But I feel it's like you both have done a lot to make sure me and Naya both have a good, happy life. And it's like, I just feel unhappy sometimes and I can't control it. Like,
But we will continue, Leah, to do whatever needs to be done to make sure you have a comfortable life and a happy life. It's not just about the vacations, the trips, the fun things we do here. It's about making sure you are happy in your head and your heart.
yeah.
And we don't always get it right. We don't. But we're willing to try.
Yeah.
And I do not, and I speak for your dad because I know he feels the same exact way. We don't want you to carry that burden. If you're sad and you're happy, you need to tell us. Especially when you're sad, you need to tell us. The other week, we stopped what we were doing and we were like, we need an emergency appointment.
Yeah.
And I feel after that appointment, things, we needed a couple days to, I guess, get it together or to, cope with what was happening. But I feel we would do it again this week if we had to.
Yeah.
But most importantly, how do you feel?
So I'm starting to feel better, definitely, especially compared to last week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like last week was just rough. It was like I was tired. Even when we went to go see your family, it was like I just wanted to lay in the bed all day because I went to bed tired and woke up tired.
Yeah.
And it was like that for about 2.5 months. And then that just causes you to be drained and kind of just stop rolling, I feel, at that point. Because it's like you can't ever like regain your energy.
No matter what you do, the battery is always half empty.
Yeah.
And I know you would go to bed. Well, I don't know if you were in the bed or not, but you would go up to your room and say goodnight to us at like 7:30.
Well, I wouldn't go to bed.
And then you'd wake up, you'd reemerge out of your room at like 8 o'clock the next day, and you were like, I'm tired. And I was like, well, she was up there goofing around. Like, and I didn't realize, because when you go to bed, like we've always given you guys your space. Like when you're in the bed, you're like good night, it's good night.
Quiet time.
Right. And I am okay with quiet time. I like to rest before I go to bed. And I like my quiet time too. So I totally understood it, but I didn't know why you were so tired. Like tired all the time.
Yeah.
And then when you explained the other week that you just couldn't, get it together, I knew that it wasn't just therapy that was going to cut it.
Yeah.
And we didn't come to that decision lightly, and neither did you, but I am glad we did. And it doesn't mean you have to be medicated forever. But I think with the proper medication, the proper therapy, you are able to learn coping skills and you'll be able to come off.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about it?
I just don't want to have to take it forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel once it starts constantly helping, it'll be okay. I actually need to take it. I haven't taken it yet.
You said you did earlier today.
Did I? No, I didn't, because we were talking about it at the photo shoot, and then I didn't really go upstairs yet.
Oh my God. Well, you changed, so...
Yeah, but I just changed. That was it.
Are you sure you didn't take it?
I'm positive.
Okay.
Like, I swear I didn't.
Okay. Is there anything that we're missing? We can always do a follow-up. We can always do a part 2,
Mental health, the continuation.
Right. Because this is ongoing. This isn't something that is going to be now and then like a one and done. This is definitely something as a family we're going to continue to face.
I think right now I'm good. Said everything needed to say.
Okay. You are one of the bravest young ladies I know.
Thank you.
I am so unbelievably proud of you, Liya.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
So proud of you, kid.